What up, y'all? Hold on, let me see if I can get this to work. Couldn't get it to work before the live stream. Aha! All right. What's the overall color of the front of this book? It's about grayish, about that, like that color. All right, there we go. Dun-da-da. And that's how you do it. You go live, you pop the words up on the screen. All right, now we're at 2% battery, so I'm gonna plug in my phone charger. We're out over hers. I'm showing you guys how to do it. If you guys read books like I do, why read books just to read books? Like, you know, Facebook will pay you to get views on this type of stuff, and people will watch it because the book is actually teaching them something, and you can relate to your followers through different books and stuff. So it's an idea for you if you like to read. Get paid to read, guys. I'm not out here making a whole bunch of money off social media. Don't think that I am. You know, like I said in the previous video, Sadie made what, $3,000 in a week off of some app somewhere. My checks are like $20 a month, $30 a month. I had the biggest check I ever got from social media was $300 a month for 1 month. But on average, I'm only making like $50, $60 a month off Facebook. But you got to think, I also get $20, $30 a month off TikTok, $10, $15 a month off Snapchat, another $20, $30 a month off Scoops. By the end of the month, I made $400 or $500 because there's so many different apps. All right, 1 + 1 is 1. Run it up, and I'm showing you guys how it's done. So before my battery dies, let me plug this bad boy right here in the bottom of the click. All right. Now, because my phone charger is plugged in, I have to find a way to balance my phone while I read. What I'm going to do by putting my phone in my charger case and propping it up against the wall. Right? Now, there's a will today, I promise. Alright, all you need is an idea and practice. So, let's read before I have to clock in, okay? I also have to keep an eye on the time though. 2:30. We got a half of an hour. Yang, the youngest, and his terrible ear. Better get that out now, I guess. Yang, the Youngest, and His Terrible Ear by Lindsay Namioka. Never read it before. It's all news to me. It's news to you. Let's go. Let's see what this book can teach us. This is part 1, and I'm gonna pop the words up on the screen like this for part 2, part 3 to make it easy to find, so you know when I'm doing these videos. Yang, the Youngest, and His Terrible Ear by Lindsay Namioka, illustrated by Kees de Kiefte. Okay. Hope I pronounced that right. To father and eldest sister. Yang, the eldest, drew his bow across his violin strings, and a shower of sparkling notes fell over the room. Yang, the second oldest, drew her bow across her viola strings, and a rainbow of notes hung brightly in the air. Yang, the third eldest, drew her bow across her cello strings, and a wave of deep mellow notes washed over us. Yang, the youngest, that's me, drew my bow across my violin strings, and it went screech. I'm the youngest child in the Yang family of 4 children. According to our Chinese custom, I'm not allowed to call my elder brother
and my two sisters by their given names. Instead, I have to address them as eldest brother and second eldest sister and third sister. They call me fourth brother. My parents are both musicians. Father was a violinist in the Shanghai Philharmonic Orchestra until a few months ago, when we left China and came to live in America. Now he has a job with the Seattle Symphony Orchestra. Mother is a pianist. She used to accompany Father when he gave concerts, but she hasn't been able to find a job since coming to America. Orchestras can use many violinists, but they don't need more than one pianist. So these days, Mother spends most of her time shopping and cooking to feed us all. It isn't easy to feed a family of 6 on Father's salary. He is what's called an alternate, which means he gets to play only when one of the other violinists is absent. Father also makes some money giving private lessons. At first, he didn't get many students. Parents didn't want to bring their children to a music teacher who spoke so little English and such a strong Chinese accent. But music is music in any language, and Father doesn't have to say much during lessons. When one of his students plays well, he smiles, and when a student plays a sour note, Father just puts a look on, like a look of great suffering. I know that look. When Father gives me my music lesson, it never leaves his face. I started playing the violin when I was 5, and it's now 4 years later. Father's expression is still the same. I don't exactly enjoy the lessons either, but I don't suffer as much as he does. That's because I can't hear what I'm doing wrong. In fact, that's my problem. I have a terrible ear. My parents didn't believe that could happen to one of their children, but they both had good ears, and so did eldest brother, second sister, and third sister. Eldest brother was humming tunes even before he could talk. Mother taught him both Chinese and American songs. Soon, he was singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm right on pitch, even on the oink oink and the quack quack parts. On oldest brother's 4th birthday, my parents gave him a violin that was 1/8 the size of a regular one. He is 15 now, and he has been right on pitch ever since. Second sister, 2 years younger than eldest brother, started singing along during his violin lessons, so she got a viola, 1/8 size. Third sister, who is 3 years younger than second sister, started by playing the viola that had become too small for second sister, but she was so short that she had to stand up and hold the instrument on its end, like a cello. She got a real cello as soon as she grew tall enough. When I was born, my parents were pleased, but now they could have a complete string quartet, 2 violins, a viola, and a cello. They never imagined that the second violin would turn out to be me, playing so badly. But I knew. I began to suspect something was wrong, because whenever I started singing, people would move away from me. I loved songs. At least I loved the words. In China, we often sang American songs, and the most popular one was Oh Susanna. But my favorite song was the one about the farmer and his animals, which eldest brother had taught me. Fourth brother is singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Third sister announced proudly one day, "No, he's not," said Father. "The tune he is singing is quite different." "Well, at least he's doing the oinks oinks and the quack quacks," she said. Third sister has always been closest to me. It's not just that we're close in age. She's only a year older than I am. But when everyone else thought I wasn't really trying hard enough to play in tune, she was the only one who knew that I was doing the best that I could. The trouble is that except for the oink oinks and the quack quacks, Old MacDonald Had a Farm sounds to me a lot like Mary Had a Little Lamb. I am what they call tone deaf. Me too, buddy. Practice makes perfect, but anyway. You'd think that being Chinese and tone deaf could be a real problem, because the Chinese language is full of tones. If you make the same sounds but with different tones, you change the meaning completely. Luckily, things aren't that bad for me, because the tones in Chinese slide up and down, and I can hear the difference between a sound sliding up and a sound sliding up and a sound sliding down. My problem is that I don't know how much to slide up or down. This is not good when you have to play the violin. At least I didn't have to worry about rhythm. Having a terrible ear means that I have a problem with pitch, but I can count as well as any of the Yangs, and I always come in on time. The others probably wished I wouldn't come in on time. Sometimes I suspected they wished I wouldn't come in at all. So there I was, coming in on time, sliding up and down, doing the best I could. And as usual, my best wasn't good enough for Father. Eldest brother rolled his eyes. You have to listen harder. Fourth brother, before you play, sing the notes in your head first, ordered second sister. That's easy for her to say. I couldn't even sing the notes in my throat. Maybe he's a mutant, said third sister. A mutant? Asked second sister. Don't you mean a mute? He certainly needs an exercise mute. A mute is a little button-like thing you put on your violin when you want to sound softer. Second sister had once suggested permanent mutes on my violin. Third sister giggled. She's the giggler of the family because she knows her dimples are cute. We all have our own ways of learning English, and third sister's is to make a list of 5 new words every day and memorize them. Mutant was on her list that day. Mutant means you turn out really different from your parents, she explained. Fourth brother isn't lazy. He's just born different. There's nothing he can do about it. Nonsense, said second sister. She was 13 and a young lady. Young ladies didn't giggle and didn't put up with nonsense. Let's stop talking and get back to practicing, said eldest brother. As the eldest of the family, he was more serious than the rest of us. Whenever we started to waste time, he quickly got us back on track. We immediately picked up our instruments again. We weren't scared of eldest brother, not very much anyway, but we knew we had to practice. A very important recital was being planned. For Father's sake, for the sake of the Yang family, we had to make a good impression. At a recital, all the students play a piece of music, and their families and friends are invited to hear them. This was the first recital Father had organized since he started giving music lessons here in Seattle. If his students did well, their parents would tell their parents and other parents, and then Father would get a lot more students. At the end, announced Father, the 4 of you will be playing a portion from a string quartet. It will be the grand finale of the whole recital. We all knew the last piece on the program was the most important one. That was the one the audience would remember best when they went home. If we could impress the audience with our skill, we would really show them what a great teacher Father was. Normally, I didn't suffer much during my lessons. I just ran through the pieces as best as I could, and if other people suffered, too bad for them. But this recital worried me. When they heard me playing so badly, the parents in the audience would say to themselves, if Mr. Yang can't teach his own son to play, how can he teach our children? Now as we practiced, I found myself sweating with nervousness. My hand felt unsteady, and I couldn't get a good grip on my violin bow. It slid around on the string and produced those terrible screeches. This got on everybody's nerves. Even eldest brother finally lost his patience. It's bad enough that you play out of tune. Do you have to keep screeching too? I'm sorry, I mumbled. I wiped my hands on my pants. Then I wiped my brow, which was streaming. This made my hands wet again, and I had to borrow third sister's handkerchief. Eldest brother sighed deeply and put his violin under his chin. Let's try those last 4 bars again. Second sister picked up her bow, and third sister bent over her cello. One by one, the other 3 Yangs started playing their sparkling notes. When my entrance came, I pressed harder to keep my bowing hand from wobbling, but all I got was an extra loud screech. A lot of deep suffering came over oldest brother's face. At times like these, He looks a lot like my father. He has the same long face and the same wide mouth that curves down at the corners when he's in pain. "Fourth brother," he said, fixing me with his sternest look, "I know that music doesn't mean as much to you as it does to the rest of us, but you really have to try harder. You know that saying that hard work can overcome 10,000 problems." "He just doesn't care about playing in tune," said second sister. "I don't think there's any use practicing until his attitude is better." She put her instrument back in its case firmly, closed the lid, and snapped the catch. I tried not to show it, but I was hurt. I admired oldest brother and second sister deeply for being so dedicated to music, even if I didn't share their dedication. It must be wonderful to know exactly what you want to do with life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I didn't want to be a miserable second violinist. In fact, I never wanted to play violin. After eldest brother and second sister had left, third sister came over me and put her arms around me. "Don't feel so bad," she said softly. "I know you're doing your best." Her kindness only made me feel like crying. "I'll spoil everything. I'll ruin the recital." "Maybe we can think of something," she said. "Maybe we can fix it so that eldest brother plays most of your notes." "The only way to save the recital is for eldest brother to play all of my notes," I said. In a string quartet, the second violin, me, usually has the least important part. But even playing the least important part, I could still ruin the recital. And eldest brother couldn't always cover for me. He had his own notes to play. There was no way, absolutely no way, that I could play in the recital without sounding awful. And if I sounded awful, the whole quartet was going to sound awful, and since our quartet was the last piece in the recital, the audience would go home with an awful impression. I wanted so much to please my family, especially my father, but it seemed hopeless. Maybe third sister was right. I was just a mutant, an outcast, a misfit. I would never be one of the musical Yangs. What if I got so sick that I couldn't play? When the others saw me in pain, they'd feel sorry for criticizing me. I'd be lying pale, suffering in bed, and I wouldn't be around for them to pick on anymore. But maybe they wouldn't be sorry. I was no good. My parents might even be glad if they could exchange me for a kid who could play music. Then I realized that I was wallowing in self-pity, and I became disgusted with myself. I remembered Father's anxious face as he counted heads when we boarded the plane coming into America. I remembered his big smile when he saw all four of us safely strapped in our seats. I remembered Mother carefully dividing a Hershey's chocolate bar with almonds into 4 exactly equal pieces. My parents did love me as much as others, and I knew that. But what could I do to prevent the recital from being a disaster? I had managed to get out of tight spots before. When I was singing in the chorus of my Chinese school, I always looked around at the person behind me whenever the music teacher scowled in my direction. But this wasn't so simple. I had to think of something to save the recital. I just had to. 2:41. That's the time. I'm watching the time, guys. Chapter 2. Our family arrived in America in the winter, and the school year was almost half over. So when I started school, the other students in my class already knew each other. To make things worse, I didn't even know English. Enough to try to make friends anyway. But language was only one of my problems. American kids scared me at first. They yelled terribly loud and ran fast in hallways, and they made fun of each other more than they did in China. For the first few weeks, I found myself hugging the walls. It was like that time in China when I learned to swim. I was afraid to let go of the side of the pool because in the middle were other swimmers splashing around like sharks. Once when I was walking in the hallway at school, I turned a corner and bumped into a boy. He was running so fast that he knocked me off my feet. He pulled me upright and shook me a little. Maybe he wanted to see if any parts were rattling loose. When he saw I wasn't hurt, he winked at me, laughed, and said, "Hey, no sweat." He looked so cheerful that I laughed. No sweat. Sounded like a cool phrase. but I didn't know what it meant. And I told third sister about it. She added it to her list. In a few weeks, I learned to walk just as fast and shoved my way just as hard through the hallways as the other kids did. My parents even complained about it. "You're becoming too rough, Ying Tao. Why do you have to stomp your feet so hard?" Before I got used to the American school, the other kids laughed at some of the things I did. Each morning, as soon as the teacher came into the room, I jumped to my feet and stood stiffly at attention, as we did in China. That was how we showed our respect to the teacher. The first time I did it here in America, the teacher asked me whether I needed something or not. I looked around and saw that nobody else was standing up, and I felt foolish. I shook my head and I sat back down. But I didn't realize how much of a target that had put on my back. When I did it again the next day, a couple of kids behind me started to snicker. After that, I remembered not to jump up. But I half rose a few times. One boy used to watch me, and if he saw my bottom leave my seat, he would whisper, "Down, Fido." Third sister was a great help during those early days. While the other kids were busy talking or playing games at recess, she and I stood in a corner and kept each other company. Every day we walked together to our elementary school, which was not far from our house. Eldest brother and second sister took a big yellow bus to a school that was farther away, and if eldest brother had a terrible trouble making friends, it didn't seem to bother him. Music was the only thing he really cared about. I think second sister felt the loneliest. In China, people always said she would turn out to be a real beauty. She had been popular at school there, always surrounded by friends. But in America, not many people told her she was beautiful. These days, she was often cranky and sad. Mother told the rest of us that we just had to be patient. Third sister had no trouble at all making friends. Even before she could speak much English, she began chatting with other kids. She could always fill in the gaps with laughter. During lunch, she and I sat at a table with mostly Asian Americans. At first, we didn't understand what Asian Americans were. We were filling out registration forms at school, putting down Chinese in the space marked race. The secretary at school told us to change it to Asian American. With a big smile, she said, "We have a number of Asian Americans at this school, so you'll be able to make friends easily." My teacher must have felt the same, because on my first day in class, she seated me next to a girl who was also Asian American. I greeted her in Chinese, but she just shook her head. "I'm afraid I don't understand Chinese," she said in English. "Sorry, I don't understand that either. My family's from Korea." I didn't know much about Korea, except that my country had once invaded her country. I hoped she didn't hold it against me. "You speak good English?" I said. "When did you arrive?" "Oh, I was born in America," she said. "So were my parents." In spite of this bad start, she tried to be helpful to me, but we never became close friends. So I was lonely. After third sister made friends in her class, she began to spend less and less time with me. Then I met Matthew during recess one day. Third sister was busy talking to some new friends, and I was looking wistfully at some boys playing catch and wondering if I could find the nerve to join them. Suddenly, I felt someone pluck my pen from my pocket. This was a ballpoint pen I had brought with me from China, with a picture of a panda on the side of it. Whenever I thought about China and missed the friends that I had left behind, I would take out that pen and look at that picture. The boy who had taken the pen was running away laughing. I ran after him shouting. The teacher came up and asked me what the trouble was. He took my pen." I stopped because I didn't know the English word for pen. In Chinese, we have the same word, bai, for pen, or pencil, or brush. "He took my writing stick," I finished lamely. The boy who had taken the pen stood there and grinned while the other teacher looked puzzled. "Jake took his ballpoint pen," said a tall, freckled boy with curly brown hair. I saw the whole thing. The teacher turned and frowned at Jake. "Is this true?" "Aw, I was just teasing him a little," said Jake. quickly handing the pen back to me. He's always playing with it, so I got curious. I thanked the boy with the curly hair. Don't mind Jake, the teacher said. He didn't mean anything by it. My name is Yang Ying Tao. I introduced myself. Then I remembered that in America people said their family name last and their given name first. Yang Tao is my last name, I told him. Except that in America, my last name is really my first name, and my first name is my last name. So I'm Yang Ying Tao in China, but I'm Ying Tao Yang in America. Okay. The boy looked confused, as am I. Just then the bell rang. I'm Matthew Connor, he said quickly. See you around. I began to feel a little less lonely. We discovered that our school had an after-school orchestra which met twice a week. My parents thought that third sister and I were very lucky, and they signed us up for the orchestra right away. They never even asked us whether or not we wanted to join. Before third sister and I could play in the orchestra, the conductor gave us an audition. That is, he asked each of us to play a few bars of music alone. He looked pleased when he heard third sister play cello. He immediately put her near the front of the orchestra. Then it was my turn to play the violin. He stopped me after only 4 measures and looked at me thoughtfully. Would you like to try the triangle instead? Maybe I should have felt insulted, but in fact, I was tempted to accept that offer. You don't need a good ear to play the triangle. Since all you do is just hit it with a stick, you only need to come in on time. And I was good at that. And besides, the triangle makes only a small tinkle, so you can't do much harm. But I knew my parents would be upset. I have my own violin, I told the conductor unhappily. My parents will expect me to play it, he sighed. Very well. I know what parents are like. He put me in the very last row of the violin section, as far from the audience as possible. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the reading thus far. This is part 1. I'm going to leave this here, and we're going to break it into however many parts it takes to read it, but it's going to be very easy to find on my timeline because it's always going to have this little prompt right there, alright? For those of you who don't know what this book is about, I will go ahead and I will read the back. Okay, this is a brief description of what is to follow. Everyone in the Yang family is a talented musician, except for 9-year-old Ying Tao, the youngest Yang. Even after years of violin lessons from his father, Ying Tao cannot make beautiful music. Now that his family has moved from China to Seattle, Ying Tao wants to learn English and make new friends at school. Still, he must make time to practice his violin for an important family recital to help his father get more students, so that his father can get more business and thus provide for the family. Ying Tao is afraid his screeching violin will ruin the recital, but he's even more afraid to tell his family that he has found something that he loves more than music. Together, he and his new friend Matthew think of a sure way to save the recital, and they're certain nothing will go wrong. Pretty good so far. Yeah. Follow your dreams. Don't let your parents' struggles or problems or dreams or wishes for you determine your life. Like it says here on the back, he found something that he loved more than music and he was afraid to tell his parents. So I cannot wait to see what we uncover in this book. In Yang the Youngest and His Terrible Ear, Part 2. Homeless man's got to clock into work, alright? I only got 24 hours in a day, and a rich man bought 8 hours. So I got to go do whatever it is that he requires me to do for this company that I work for, alright? I'm going to go put my phone in my locker. And for the next 8 hours, I am going to do whatever it is I have to do to make those $16 an hour. Alright? In the meantime, Love yourself. Love others. Love the world around you. Peace.